Jay here from Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, we're live, we're in the studio, so get involved in all the chat and the comments. We're going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news. The big news, obviously, is the game against Brentford tomorrow. Manchester United travelling to Brentford for the early kickoff, 12:30. We're going to be live with the watch-along. I think it's me, Joe Smith and Adam McCullough for that one. We are expecting to hear from Ruben Amorim later on today with his press conference, his presser. He'll be giving us the latest updates on who's going to be starting in that game. Might have a little bit more clarity on one or two decisions he's got to make. First of all, though, let's talk about some of the stories doing the rounds. Now, there's a story here in the Mail, and it says here, Inside United's young talent drive, how the club are looking to avoid repeat of Moises Caicedo mistake and why Cristian Orozco is next on the list after Sir Jim Ratcliffe's next Kylian Mbappe claim. Now, if you don't know what the next Kylian Mbappe claim is, when Sir Jim Ratcliffe first took over at Manchester United or became a shareholder or whatever you want to call it, he gave an interview, because he does like an interview, doesn't he, old Sir Jim? And he said that United aren't about buying Kylian Mbappe. They want to try and buy, or we want to try and buy, the next Kylian Mbappe. So rather than paying, 130 million or whatever it costs to try and buy someone like Mbappe, you get the player when they're younger, when they're still sort of showing that potential before they get a move to a bigger club. Because in the past, Manchester United have always done this, and we've always done, not that, we've always bought the player from a Premier League club or when they're a bit more established. That's been the sort of the MO of Manchester United. So Jim Ratcliffe is saying, that's not going to be what we do anymore. We'll try and buy the player before they go to another club, and then we have to spend big money. And Caicedo is a good example of this, because when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager, we were linked with Moises Caicedo. He apparently wanted him. Caicedo would have been up for it. And it would have cost around 5 million. Now, we spoke to Carl Anker about this, and one of the issues United had when trying to sign Caicedo, we can just talk about him briefly before we move on, was that he had the third-party ownership. And I think that made United balk a little bit, because you remember, like, Carlos Tevez had third-party ownership. It can get a little bit messy. You're not just dealing with a club and a player, you're also dealing with whoever owns part of the player and the agent and everything. And I think United it was a lot to unpick, and they thought, we can't bother with this. It's too much of a mess. We'll walk away from the deal. Caicedo goes to Brighton, does really well there, and then he ends up going to Chelsea for 100 million, whatever it was, 115 million. Now the idea is that Manchester United need to aim for trying to get some of these younger players, trying to get someone like Caicedo or whatever, before they get this big money move. Now, or before they go to a Premier League club or whatever. Now, Cristian Orozco is the latest signing we've made from Colombia. He's been used as an example of this. We've also done it with other players that are mentioned in the article. Chido Obi, Diego Leon, Aiden Heaven and Seka Kone are all young players who we've got 16, 17, 18 before they hit the big time, shall we say. And the idea is we're going to try and get these players in. Now, obviously, either they join the team, they play around, they're in the first team or around the first team squad or the under-21s, or maybe we loan them out, but we get them in early. That is the idea, and that is the sort of the new approach. Now, it makes a lot of sense, this. And it's not novel. It's not like we haven't done this before. United have always bought young players. Like, let's not kid ourselves. I remember when I was a kid, it was like, I think we bought Lee Sharp from Torquay, and it's been going on even before that. United have always tried to get in players from a very young age. From, David Beckham, for example, what was he, about 14, 15? Look at Paul Pogba. He came from Le Havre when he was about 16. It's always been a thing at Manchester United. I think the difference now is becoming more of a focal point of Manchester United's transfer policy. While in the past, the main priority, or I'm not saying it's not the main priority, but the vast majority of our transfer business was done with the big money signings and the signings that are ready to come straight into the first team. Now it feels like they're almost sort of going in tandem. And you saw that in January. In January, we brought in two players. We brought in Patrick Dorgu and brought in Aiden Heaven. Now, Aiden Heaven did get minutes, to be fair to the kid, but it was Patrick Dorgu is one you'd expect to go straight into the first team. Aiden Heaven, one for the future. Aiden Heaven cost, what was it, £1 million? Dorgu about 20-odd million. So there's going to be a little bit more of that. That is the idea that Manchester United are going to pursue. And it makes sense, because we're in this sort of difficult era, aren't we, in the Premier League now, where it's not so much the have and the have-nots. I think nearly every club is a have. I think most clubs now have got a decent amount of money to spend. And most clubs are doing that. They're spending money. Even the clubs that you look at and you go, okay, then, so they'll be fighting relegation. Even clubs that are fighting relegation will spend over 100 million quid in a transfer window. or expecting to fight relegation. There's very few clubs that don't have any money at all to spend or are unwilling to spend money. So that's changed, because it used to be the case when I was a kid, or even a few years ago, where some clubs would just have barely any money. They'd just be ticking over. That isn't the situation we find ourselves in now. Also, as well, the clubs sort of near the top end of the table, top half, have lots of money or are willing to really push the envelope. So if you go up against a club and you want to buy a player, the value of that player can go from 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 million very quickly. And then you get into bidding wars and all that sort of stuff. So United are looking at, okay, this could be a good sort of insurance against that. Plus you've got things like PSR as well that has to be taken into account. So it is very different now than it has been in the past. So I understand why Manchester United can make this a bit more of a priority. Also, United can't go out and keep getting it wrong. We've got it wrong so many times with big money transfers. Not all the time, but a lot of our big money transfers post Alex Ferguson just haven't worked out the way we wanted them to. Even ones where you can go, he's been a good player for Manchester United, he's been a successful player, or a player that has done lots of good games for Manchester United, you might go, well, we still overpaid for him. Look at someone like Paul Pogba, for example. He's the one that sort of is always used as an example. Was Paul Pogba a talented player? Yes. Did he have some good games for Manchester United? Did he have a lot of good games for Manchester United? I think he did. Did we overpay for him, or was he worth the 89 million quid we paid for him? Probably not. In terms of what we got, was it two trophies out of him, and then we lose him on a free? Is that good business? Did that work out? No. Then you look at someone like Harry Maguire. I think Harry Maguire overall has been a good servant for Manchester United. 80 million though, overpaid. Then you look at those two players, could argue have done a decent job for Manchester United. There's players that we paid big money for, didn't do anything for United. Angel Di Maria, 67 million, didn't do out really. Had about 2 good months. Romelu Lukaku, flattered to deceive. 79 million quid, I think. 42 goals in 96 games is a good return, but when you scratch beneath the surface, it wasn't a successful transfer by any stretch of the imagination. Then you have others that are sort of 50, 60 million that it's a similar issue. You know, Onana was 40 odd million, I think. Wan-Bissaka, who I thought actually did all right for us, again, 50 million though. So you are paying top whack no matter what, unless you go down this route, which is what Manchester United are going to do. And hopefully, longer term, that can get us onto a level playing field with some of our rivals. Adel Samakia, let me know what you think about this. Are you concerned? Do you think this is the right approach? Do you think it just makes common sense? It just makes sense because it's not like, you know, a revelation what Manchester United have decided to start buying young players. It's nothing new. It just feels like it is a little bit more of a prominent idea. Adel Samakia says, if we get 10 points from the next 4 games, I am very happy. 7 is a bare minimum and 12 is dreamland. Thoughts? Love Stretford Paddock. Yeah, I think if we get 10 points from the next 4 games, let me have a look at the fixtures, because I said this on the preview. It feels like now the Brentford and the Sunderland game in particular are going to sort of almost give you that narrative of whether it's a successful start or a bad start. I think right now we're in the middle. And there's been loads of debate and discussion about stats I spoke about yesterday, about some of the XG, about other data you can use, and it depends on your point of view, how you want to look at it. United sat in 11th. You can go, well, United sat in 11th is never good. It's not successful. The counter-argument to that would be, okay, you've played City, you've played Arsenal. Difficult games, yes, you lost them both. You've also had a couple of wins and a draw. That's not that drastic. Obviously, the Grimsby game was absolutely terrible. However, now you look at Brentford and you look at Sunderland. If you were to win those 2 games, for example, you could go, right, okay, if we were on, what would that put us on? Sorry, we can go to the actual full table. Yeah, so that if we were to win the next 2 games, you'd have 13 points from 7 games, right? You can look at that and go, okay, that's not too shabby. But then you've got the Liverpool game after that, which you'd expect the worst, really, wouldn't you? I'd be very, very surprised if Manchester United went to Anfield and got anything from that game. And I hate saying that. I hate sitting here as a United fan and looking at that game at Anfield as though almost impossible to win. It's not, but it just feels like it's very, very unlikely. I know we almost got a win now last season, didn't we? But we didn't. And the way Liverpool are playing, not playing that well, but they are getting results. Plus, they'll be well up for that one. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult. So, it does feel like this is a point in the season where, early does the season, where you can sort of set your stall out, because we've had an okay start, or, you know, it's just been mediocre or whatever, however you want to term it, okay, mediocre, whatever. But these next 2 games can make that a little bit better, hopefully move up the table, and then you've got the game at Liverpool. And then after the game against Liverpool, I think, is it Brighton? You've got Brighton at home, then you've got Forest away, which is a tricky one. You've got Spurs at home, Everton at home, Palace away. Then you've got, I think, then you've got a relatively easy-ish, well, say that. I mean, you've got Palace away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home. That's probably as easy as it gets for you for a little while, because then you've got Villa away, Newcastle at home, Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away, and then City at home. So yeah, I think those sort of games around the Christmas period or leading up to the Christmas period are the ones where you can hopefully pick up some decent amount of points. But going into that, you want to have picked up as much as possible, obviously, and just sort of quash some of the narrative around Ruben Amorim, some of the question marks around him, because he is getting questioned, and you can understand why. Last season was abysmal. We finished 15th. We're already knocked out of the Carabao Cup. There's going to be questions about the manager. Adel Samakia says, this is just support for the channel. Thank you for another super chat. Steve M says, we can win them all. Sancho is the top 3 worst signings. He did nothing about talking about money we wasted. That's a good point. I didn't even mention Jadon Sancho, and I should have done. I think he is probably one of our worst ever signings. There's a strong case. When I say worst ever signings, I don't mean in terms of his ability. I don't think Jadon Sancho is one of the worst players that's ever played for Manchester United, but I think he's one of the worst signings, because 70-odd million quid for a player that did nothing really. Scored a few goals. When I say a few, I think literally about, well, he scored more than 3, but there's not many moments, is there, from Jadon Sancho? There was a goal against Liverpool at Old Trafford. There was one at the Etihad, one at Stamford Bridge. I mean, it's not great, is it? And then you look at the fallout with the manager, never really having a run of consistent games where he turned up and did something, obviously not helping us really win anything. He didn't play a part in the trophies that we won while he was here. It was just a bit of nothingness, really. Steve M says, Pogba was injured for too much of all his reign. Yeah, I read somewhere, I think, did he miss like a quarter of the games or something? It was a big issue on it for Paul Pogba, his injuries. Cowboy says it was effort for Sancho, 200k a week, and he can't even get out of bed to go training. Yeah, that wasn't acceptable, was it? In terms of injury updates, we're going to wait, really, to find out what's going on. The Standard do this, but they always do like this injury update thing every day. But they're saying here, more good news for Ruben Amorim after both Matheus Cunha and Mason Mount returning to win over Chelsea. We know Cunha and Mount should be available. We're waiting to see what the situation is. I think with Delo. I think Delo's been in training. It says here, Diogo Delo returns to full team training on Thursday. So he should be available. I mean, it's debatable whether the manager's going to pick him in. He might say, look, he's only had a few days of training. I don't want to risk it. Or he might say, look, he's had full training. He's ready. Like, we'll throw him in. I'm guessing he's going to get asked about that. The big question about the game this weekend is probably who's going to start in goal, I think. There's two big questions, actually. One is Kobbie Mainoo. There's been articles, I spoke about it yesterday, I don't need to labour the point. Is Kobbie Mainoo going to start his first Premier League game against Brentford? Because we know there's no Casemiro suspended, or is he going to go with Ugarte? I think he'll probably go with Ugarte. I hope I'm wrong. I'd rather see Kobbie Mainoo. And is Lamons going to start? Because Bayern Day has been playing, obviously. I think he started every Premier League game, hasn't he? But Le Mans came in ahead of the Manchester derby. He didn't play in a derby, which I get. I understand why he didn't. Didn't play against Chelsea, which is probably a little bit more surprising. You think he's been here a week now. Home game. Would that not have been a good opportunity to give him his debut? Now you've got a trip to Brentford. Could that be time to give him his debut? Possibly. We'll have to wait and see. We'll hear from the manager. One thing's for certain, though. He hasn't been turning up in training to a degree of no one's been able to score past him, and he hasn't been given any nicknames, so you might want to check yourself before you start reading stories off someone who's just been posting nonsense that everyone seems to have picked up on and started thinking that he's been given a nickname, the Iron Dome, which is just ridiculous. Let's talk about Marcus Rashford. We've not spoke about him for a week. There's a story in the evening news. You've got to remember, Marcus Rashford is still a United player, and people go, oh, Jay, why are you talking about Marcus Rashford? Just move on. Well, regardless of what you think of Marcus Rashford, if you think he's amazing or if you don't, whatever, it matters what he does in a Barcelona shirt, because they could end up buying him. He's there on loan and he could go there on a permanent deal. And I think he's got his 3rd assist, is it, in 3 games, I think. Enjoyed a brief but heartfelt reunion with Eric Bailly on Thursday night. He's continued his promising form for the Catalan club. He obviously got a couple of goals in the Champions League. The winger registered his third assist in as many La Liga matches as Barca triumphed 3-1 against Real Oviedo. Continue their unbeaten start to the season. He's doing all right, Rashford. There was a bit of an issue earlier on in the week where he was put on the bench because he was late for a team meeting or training or whichever one it was. I think it was a meeting. However, it's not like he's fell out with Hansi Flick. And he's obviously been doing quite well there. So third assist in 3 games in La Liga, a couple of goals in the Champions League. Looks like it's starting to happen for Marcus Rashford at the new camp. I hope it does. I hope he gets the permanent move that he probably needs now. And Manchester United can reinvest that money elsewhere. It saddens me that it's worked out like this. I always thought Marcus Rashford would spend his entire career at Manchester United, but it doesn't look like he is going to do that. So hopefully we can get some decent money for him. Cowboy says, losing to Brentford while starting a new keeper. I can see the stories. Akash K says, it's lovely to see Rashford enjoying his football again. Steve M says, true colours and speaks volumes needs to be banned. Yeah, that's a bit of a journalism speak. Steve M says, 3 questions, Jay. Le Mans, Manu, and will our new front 3 finally start a game together? Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Those are probably the biggest 3 questions there. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind seeing Cunha and Bumo and Benjamin Sesko starting. We spoke about Sesko on the preview and on the off the bar. He's not got a goal or an assist yet, has he? Now, that's not the be-all and end-all, but as a striker, you ought to get off the mat. Now, he's not played a lot of football. He's played, I think, every game, but some games he's played like 20 minutes. So it's not like you can go, well, he's played every single game and every minute of every game he still hasn't scored. However, agendas, narratives, whatever you want to call them, can build quite quickly. They can. And if you're a striker, big money striker, coming into Manchester United side, and you don't score after 6 or 7 games, you're going to get a bit of grief. And also that whole 007 thing, if you don't get a goal or an assist in the first 7 games, will start trending or whatever, or the rival fans will start doing all that nonsense. So I want to see him get a goal. I'd like to see him start. I'd like to see Bumo and Cunha start as well. I'd start Kobe Mainu. Would I start San Lamons? Probably, it was up to me. I would. I'd give him a go. But we'll wait and see whether the manager agrees. Let's talk about Jarrad Branthwaite, because this pops up. I think we've got another Jarrad Branthwaite story. I thought we'd all moved on from Jarrad Branthwaite because we were linked with him over the summer. I think Football Talk, I don't know how reliable these are. Has this been quoted from somewhere? Caught offside, thank you. So according to Caught Offside, Man United are ready in a 60 million offer to sign Jarrad Branthwaite from Everton, a player that Liverpool are strongly linked with and might attempt to sign in 2026. I'm going to be honest with you, yeah. I usually have a story where I say, of all the things that isn't going to happen, this isn't going to happen the most, and this is that one for today, right? Because, for starters, the one area United probably don't need to strengthen right now is at centre-back. We've got Lisandro Martinez come back into the team. We've got Aiden Evan, who is quite reliable and can start football matches for Manchester United. He's not just one for the future, he's one for the here and now. Luke Shaw, who plays at centre-back now, or left centre-back, but he's still centre-back. So he's playing, and he's actually kept himself injury-free for a little while. Harry Maguire still does a very good job for Manchester United. I thought he was excellent against Chelsea. He's still a Manchester United player, and he doesn't look like he's going to go anywhere in January. Matthijs de Ligt, Lenny Yoro, who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing someone. Nuzair Mazraoui plays at centre-back as well and does a very good job there. So you've got 7 centre-backs. Do you need to sign another one for 60 million quid? Now, I know we've been linked with Jarrad Branthwaite, and I know we've obviously had him on our radar, and it's obviously that Manchester United like him as a player and think he can fit into this team and think he can fit into this system, even though we were linked with him before Ruben Amorim arrived. But are we going to go out and spend 60 million quid we haven't got in January on a player we don't need? No. And also, the other bit of that story, he's been moved to Liverpool. Yes, because famously, Everton always sell their players to Liverpool. They've got such a good relationship, haven't they? Yeah, I can see him moving across Stanley Park. Well, it's not Stanley Park. It's not across Stanley Park, isn't it, anymore? Because Everton have moved. Cowboy says Shaw should be sent to the under-21s. I don't know about Steve M says United expected to launch a bid for Wesley Sneijder. Yep. Sagar Calra says, doesn't matter who is in the starting 11. The one player who I trust to turn up and care has always been Bruno. And if he doesn't turn up, no one else does. Santa Knox says, amazing how stories of any player we were once linked with can linger for years and years and years. Yeah, they can, can't they? It is mad. But you'll get it. You'll get, like, remember Adrian Rabiot? I know we were linked with him, but even that comes up even more recently. Oh, there's one actually on that vein. There's one here on Frenkie De Jong. I wasn't going to bother with it, but this is Man United dealt blow in pursuit of incredible Barcelona staff. The deal agreed. So this is Mick Brown, who was a scout at United for over a decade, I think, and he told Football Insider. Yeah, he sort of explained. I think this is him explaining the Frenkie De Jong story and how it all went Pete Song. So. Yeah, it says here, Man United wants to sign a midfielder as their priority. The former scout, who has a wealth of experience in top-level recruitment, insisted that De Jong is a name who they have considered returning for in recent weeks, which just points out, goes to Santa Nocci's point, that, you know, we're still looking at Frenkie De Jong. I don't think that's ever going to happen. He was obviously a Erik ten Hag target. It looked like United wrote for him. Didn't we have a bid accepted? I think we had a bid accepted, but he was owed money by Barcelona, so he didn't want to leave Barcelona without being paid the money he was owed, or he just didn't want to come to Manchester United. It was all very weird, that, wasn't it? Because you think someone would have spoke to the player and found out whether he was up for coming to Manchester United. You think there would have been a sort of an agreement, or not an agreement, you know, an understanding between the manager or someone from the United camp and the player that he was keen to come to Manchester United, but there wasn't, and he didn't, and we didn't sign him because of that. So it was just a load of nonsense. Cowboy says Frenkie De Jong close to signing a new contract to 2029. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but I don't think we need to worry about signing Frenkie De Jong because I don't think it'll happen. Hit that like button as well, please, people. We are going to be hearing from the manager later on today, of course. He's going to be speaking to the media ahead of the trip to Brentford. We've also got the brew with me and Steve on this afternoon. So if you're not doing so already, please make sure you hit like, share and subscribe. And also, let me just put a quick link in as well. Oh, you've done it. There's a link there to the Paddock merch store. We've got loads of new merchandise out, so go and check out the link to that. And I'll be back later on this afternoon, so make sure you're hitting like, share and subscribe. You can go and check out the preview for the Brentford game as well. I'm Jay. This has been the Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.